All right, all right, all right. Welcome everybody to this month's installment of the Perspectives webinar series powered by the Predictive Index, the business of HR. We're going to give people just a couple minutes to get started. Today, National Fluffernutter Day. So I thought maybe hit to the chat and tell us where you're dialing in from and what's your favorite sandwich. Panelists, did you think about this one? What's your favorite sandwich?
Matt, I had to Google what a fluffernutter was.
Oh my.
I'm
Did you go
from
make
the
one?
West Coast and I don't think we had them. It looks delicious though. I'm gonna make one today.
Yeah. There we go. I see Boston weighing in with a caprese panini. Wow, just coming from the top.
I gotta go chicken
BLTs,
parm sub. Chicken
chicken
parm
parm. Yeah,
sub is my favorite.
that's a good one. That's a good one. Seen a lot of popular BLTs here. Cheesesteak as well. Cuban's good. A donut. I love our audience. Reuben. Yeah, go to one of those New York delis and order Reuben and see how it's piled so high. Great cheesesteaks. Lots of vote for Cuban. Now, this is making me hungry. This was a big mistake on my part.
You know, it's a very controversial question is a hot dog a sandwich?
There's actually a podcast now called "A Hot Dog
It
Is a
is
Sandwich." I think they're trying to settle it once and for all.
get
Yeah.
really upset about it.
We'll have to do a whole webinar topic on that someday. If
Oh,
you're
you
just joining,
should.
we haven't lost our minds. We're just giving one more minute for people to join. Just let us know
Is
where
the
you're
sandwich,
dialing in from.
Allison. I saw that. I got Allison in the chat. I agree.
There we go.
Yeah, you
And
started it, Sarah.
yeah, right, here we go. So again, just a National Fluffer Nutter Day. Exciting. What's your favorite sandwich? Where are you dialing in from? That's what's happening in the chat. We'll give just one more minute, and then I promise we're going to go ahead and get started. Grilled cheese. Yeah, it's hard to go wrong with grilled cheese. We're getting into the cooler weather where I live in New England, and I was already thinking about grilled cheese. Make it fancy, though. Let's elevate that stuff. All right, it is 2:02. I won't keep us in suspense any longer. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this webinar all about the business of HR. It is my distinct pleasure as the host, Matt Pepsel here, to introduce you to our panelists. And I'm going to begin with Sarah Murray. Sarah is the Chief Executive Officer of Mermaid International. She is a sales consultant, trainer, and speaker who helps leaders and teams in complex sales environments turn prospecting into profit. Through her platform, Prospecting on Purpose, Sarah equips professionals with frameworks and accountability systems that drive revenue growth by deepening relationships and selling to business models and outcomes, not features and discounts. Sarah, great to see you. Thanks for being with us today.
So happy to join.
Next up, we have Jordana Cole. She's the founder of Ignited LLC and co-founder of ShiftWell. She is the Chief Product and Research Officer of ShiftWell. ShiftWell utilizes human potential research, behavior change best practices, and AI tools to identify what each employee holistically needs to be at their best and partner with you at the individual, leader, and organizational level to intentionally close the gaps to get there. Jordana, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Thrilled to be here, Matt. Hi, everyone.
And last but not least, we have Amy Mancarelli. Amy is the Senior Director of People at Bloomerang. Whether working with leaders, speaking to global audiences, or sharing ideas online, Amy brings a sharp human-centered lens to the evolving role of people teams in driving business strategy and impact. Today, as the Senior Director of People and Culture at Bloomerang, she channels that passion into a platform dedicated to empowering nonprofits. She has attracted an audience of over 87,000 professionals who follow her daily insights on HR. Amy, thanks so much for being with us today.
Absolutely. Super happy to be here, Matt.
I'm so excited. We're going to go ahead and get started with just a few quick housekeeping items. The first item is, yes, the webinar is being recorded and it will be sent to you in email tomorrow, I believe, after the session is over. You're going to want to use the Q&A button in the Zoom window here if you have questions for our panelists. We're going to have an audience Q&A portion at the end of the show. And you're going to want to stick around to the end because our guests have some bonus resources for you. We'll have contact information, and we'll give you a preview of next month's webinar as well. Now let's talk about a couple of quick headlines. So when I was thinking about this topic of the business of HR, I found a couple of key stats that I thought really spoke to this. One is around 70% of CEOs expect CHROs to be a key player, but only 55% say that they meet that expectation. So that's an important gap. For CHROs themselves, 41% say that they have a hard time finding business acumen when searching for HR talent. And then finally, you can see nearly 90% of HR leaders rank business acumen as their top priority for this year. And this year probably didn't unfold the way we quite expected. So I'm sure that's probably still near the top of the list. But 90% of HR leaders talking about business acumen, that led to the question of what the heck are we talking about here? So let's go ahead and flip over to a mentee. I always love to learn about our audience. As you know, you can use your magic phone there if you want to point at that QR code. There's a link that just got dropped into the chat if you want to be one click away from getting over to that poll. And I always present 2 questions to the audience so we can get to know you a little bit. Panelists came in today and said, no, we're doing 3 questions. And I said, what are you talking about? It's my show. And they said, well, not anymore. We're getting 3 questions. So today we got 3 questions for you. The first one, this: what does business acumen mean to you? So this is open-ended response, I think they call that. So let's see if some answers come in. How does the company succeed? Good one. Understanding how your company makes money. Always follow the money. Understanding and informing the strategy. What levers drive success? Yep. Understanding how leaders think. Nice. What our company does for clients. Yeah, value prop, right? Culture where everyone understands. Yeah. How the company makes money. Who are the customers? Why the business exists. Great one. Is this helping, panelists? What do you think? Good responses here, huh? Yeah.
This is a great group.
I like it. I like it. Knowing the business and how your work affects it. Love that critical connection there too. All right, so that's a good one. So with that as a backdrop, let's go on to the second question, which is, which best describes your current level of business acumen? This is a self-report, obviously. The first option: I speak fluent business. Thank you very much. I'm conversational, but rusty. I know just enough to be dangerous. Or HR acumen is plenty, thank you. Don't need to know that business stuff. So ask the panelists to respond here as well. So any surprises what we're seeing? Not too much. Looks like the #1 vote so far. I know just enough to be dangerous. And I think that reflects kind of what we saw in the stats too, right? Wanting to develop business acumen. Good to
It's
see.
good to see. It's
Yeah.
good to see there's interest and involvement. It's not just focused on HR. I think that shows how much our profession has really grown.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it makes a tremendously valuable person who really knows how to get the people part right, but understands fundamentally how the business works at a certain level. I think that's really good. Awesome. Let's go with one more question then. Open item again here. What's one barrier preventing you from being more business relevant in your role? Wide open. See what some of the responses are here with our anonymous poll. Workload. Who's got time? Time. Wait, what happened to all this AI? I thought we were getting all our time back. It hadn't happened yet? Time. Lots of time and bandwidth. Seat at the table. There you go. Seat at the table. Like that. My boss. Yeah, that definitely happens. Have to be in the weeds too much. Being stuck on admin tasks. Again, where is this AI promise? We've been sold a bill of goods here. What about knowing what the leaders at the table are thinking and having that seat at the table? The irony of the business flooding HR with admin tasks instead of strategic thinking, right? I get that. Day to day is in the way. Leadership team. So some of it's systemic, some of it's individual, I would say, meaning like people related, like the leadership not allowing us to. HR is an internal department, layers and hierarchy. Awesome. Well, audience members, as always, thank you so much for giving us some of your insight. That helps us as a panel to really start to know a little bit about where you're coming from. And with that, I'd love to shift us over into the panel discussion itself. And, Jordana, I wonder if you maybe can get us started with this first question of mine. And that really, we've got a little bit of a definition of business acumen from our audience, but what does it look like in practice? You have any examples you can share with us to kind of really get us kicked off with this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I saw kind of some themes come up. And I like the how, what, why. How does the work get done? Why does what we do matter? And what does the organization actually do? And there's only so much that you can experience that through looking at P&Ls or having conversations in the C-suite meetings. I think one of the best ways that you actually develop business acumen is understanding what the day-to-day reality is like for your people, what gets in the way of being successful, and what enables them to meet their goals. So I used to be the L&D leader for a 2,000 person e-commerce company. We had a manufacturing floor, and part of business acumen and practice meant when I was on site at the manufacturing site, rather than just spending time with senior leaders, I actually got on the floor to shadow the team and experienced their daily reality and thought about my HR initiatives and how that related back to the realities they were facing. And spending time finding out, what would be surprising for me to learn about your role? What don't I know about your day to day that would be important to me for to know? What makes it hard for you to engage with these initiatives that I don't see? That's business acumen.
Love that. Sarah, same question for you. When you think about examples, concrete examples, if you will, about business acumen, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I loved in the Mentee poll, there was a lot of comments around how the organization makes money and why the business exists. And I think one thing I would like to focus on, I'm coming from a sales lens here, but the business exists to serve our clients and our customers. And the only reason it can exist is because we make money to drive everything else. So I think if I had to pick a lane to describe business acumen, I would say it's the ability to influence. And it's exciting to have this conversation with HR professionals because at the end of the day, all business is humans influencing other humans to do something. We're influencing them to buy, to build, to partner, to come work for us, to believe in what we're doing. So all it is influence. And so I think if you have the opportunity to really develop some fundamental sales skills and the understanding that everyone's selling in their roles, that really trickles down to this business acumen that we're talking about. And so I'm excited for this discussion because I know by the end of today, everyone's going to feel a little bit more confident on moving that needle closer to being business savvy in the conversations.
I dig it. Amy, can you round us out? What do you think? Business acumen, practical examples.
It's perfect timing for the webinar because it's budget strategy season for everyone. And if you're on an HR team, you're planning out what 2026 looks like, and you haven't gotten a picture of where your org wants to head in 2026, then you're doing it backwards. You're building out an HR plan without understanding how you need to support the company. So I think it comes down to making sure that everything you're doing can tie back to something that the org is trying to accomplish so that you're helping drive the business goals versus doing something that might be important. It might be a passion project, but it's not helping to drive ultimately what the business is looking to drive.
It makes total sense, and it's clear that it's important, and I think it showed up in our statistics as well, Amy. And I wonder if I keep you in the spotlight here for a second. What do you think might explain some of that difference between 70% of CEOs who've said, I expect my CHRO to be, have strong business acumen, but only 55% could say that they felt that they were meeting that expectation? Like, what might help account for some of that difference?
I think it has to do with two different things. So first would be what level are the HR leaders operating at? And that really comes down to the teams that we build around us. So obviously we all know fires happen in HR, emergencies pop up, the unexpected things will take place. If you have the right team around you as a leader, whether you're a CHRO, a VP, a head of people, whatever your title, if you're leading a people team, things pop up. If you have a solid team around you, solid processes and systems, you can still operate at that strategic level. So that's one thing. What does the CEO see when there are emergencies that happen? How are you impacted, if at all? Are you more just kept informed, or do you have to actually dip down into the details? And then the other piece has to do with problems that do arise. Is it a surprise, or are you proactively identifying those problems and able to flag to the CEO, hey, I think we need to address this, we need to talk about this? Or is the CEO coming to you and saying, this is a problem, please dig in? Those really are two of the big things I see.
Yeah, and clearly being strategic, being proactive, being able to get in front of things, it's a lot less painful to address those issues up front, or at least to be tied to that in that way, which is so powerful. I love that a lot. And Sarah, I wonder if we shift gears here a little bit and we think about what happens when business acumen is missing? Like when there's a lack of business acumen, let's say on the HR side, like what are some of the things that can happen?
Yeah, I think what I have experienced in my roles and my colleagues, so I'm going to give an example from the employee side, not the HR side. But if my HR partners or my champion, the person who's supposed to champion for me, if they don't really understand our client's business or who are we serving or what are the challenges our problem solves or our product or service solves, then they can't fully understand my role. They don't really understand the challenges I'm doing. They don't know if I'm doing a good job or not. They don't understand how the different things that I'm trying to overcome with navigating inside the organization. And what I have experienced is it really results in this lack of trust. Like if you don't understand what I do, then how can I trust you to fight for me or think of me for a promotion or understand what I need to succeed? And when that lack of trust happens or the lack of perceived value, then HR doesn't get included in conversations because we don't understand why we need them. And they don't seem to, and just in this example, they don't necessarily seem to be taking the time to understand our customers, which is who we are all collectively serving. That's the North Star, is the clients. And so I think the ability to invest the time and learn some of this stuff, it's going to help reduce the stigma of being sent to the principal's office. Because HR only gets involved if there's a personnel problem instead of, to Amy's earlier point, like the proactive approach of understanding how can we collectively as an organization best serve our clients. And that's, I think, that lack of trust is really the negative benefits of lack of business acumen.
That's why I love this conversation, because if we do the right things and we develop that business acumen, we won't have a one-sided conversation. Like you said, if I go to HR, it's not the principal's office, but we have to kind of meet you halfway and learn at least enough about the different functions in the business. But Amy, you have both an operating experience, but also consultative experience. So when you think about this notion of a lack of business acumen, like what have you seen? What have you experienced?
Yeah, when I was consulting, I would join HR teams for project work, come in to give some strategic advice. And what I often saw was a dissonance between what leadership was looking for from HR and what HR was focused on. So you'd be working with the HR team. We would be talking about audits and paperwork and tasks. And then you'd step into the conference room with the leadership team, and that was the last thing that they cared about. Those were not business drivers. That was not anything that they wanted to talk about. And they would often ask, like, how can you help level up the HR team so that the business problems we're trying to solve, they can be there by our sides? And so there's that dissonance that you have to work through as an HR professional, HR leader, to say, okay, what do my leaders care about, and how do I make sure that that's what I'm really honing in on? And that's where you can get more of the business acumen and the trust that Sarah was talking about.
I think it's also true that a lot of the different business leaders who are outside of HR kind of feel the same way sometimes if they're in roles like quality assurance or security or things that aren't as glitzy or glamorous as building software or making sales, the way Sarah has talked about. And I think that always driving up that business relevance and that acumen is important for everybody. So, of course, by extension, it's true for HR professionals as well. But Jordana, I'll ask you this question. When it comes to thinking about these barriers, we saw a lot of the barriers. We saw time being a big one, of course, in the Menti poll results. But what comes to mind for you if I talk about the biggest barriers to developing that business acumen for our busy and overwhelmed and often burned out HR professionals?
Yeah, I mean, time absolutely comes up, right? And time is a finite resource. We can't make more of it. We can only use it differently. And I think we get so caught to the point that Amy brought up a lot of times of being so reactive, firefighting the minimal resources, that we wind up feeling kind of burnt out on this task wheel because we don't take the step back to go, am I spending my time on the right things? If we're connecting to the business value to start with, you might actually find that some of the places that you're spending time and attention on, whether it's to make the item perfect or it's to release this initiative, actually isn't worth the effort that you're spending because it's not actually driving the results that you're looking to do. And I see so many HR leaders put in so much hard fought work and effort into things that don't get adopted because the intention was good, but it didn't actually meet the reality. And I think that's really the biggest barrier. The firefighting and the time is an outcome of being disconnected from the business and developing things in a silo.
It makes total sense. Amy, I think you also are seeing this a lot. You've lived through it as well. Like when you think about the barriers, what comes up?
I actually just had a conversation about this with a team member this morning. We were talking about a project that is time intensive. It's creating a few blockers for other teams in the company. And I said, what happens if we just don't do that? And it's kind of foreign to HR teams to say, like, what happens if we stop doing it? We haven't really gone there because we have been so compliance minded, audit minded, and we want to check the boxes. I think by nature, that's who we are. And that's a great thing, but sometimes we can get in our own way. So being willing to even ask, like, if we just pause this and no one does anything with this for a month, what's going to be the true impact? And maybe even giving a little bit of breathing room to see if this thing that seems important is really all that important.
Hugely important. And I know that I've always been taught that strategy is about trade-offs. It's about what you say no to as much as it's what you say yes to. And I think that's a real great strategic counsel for HR professionals to say, just because we did it last year, we've done it for the last 3 years, doesn't mean everything's changing. We have to be able to reinvestigate and saying, is this still a valuable exercise? Or is this really the best use of my time? Or where can we give this off? Or just like you said, stop. There's tremendous power in that word, stop. It's not a 4-letter word. Wait, it is a 4-letter word. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. But if I think about this, Jordana, I think you've got an interesting perspective on this too, based on where you sit. When we talk about the business, quote unquote, the business, there can be a massive difference between sort of first line managers and then those middle directors and VPs and then the C-suite. Like when you think about that elevator going up and down like that, what does business relevance look like differently when we're at different kind of layers or levels of the organization?
Yeah. So I want to, as we've been talking, I want to change language from the business to thinking about my business,
Nice.
because I actually think that's what the business relevance is. It's what each person cares about. So when you think about, I know a lot of orgs go with the be the CEO of your own career, be the CEO of your own work. Okay, then you need to speak like it is. So at the individual contributor level, it's my business is me, what I do on a day-to-day basis. So what is the relevance to what you're offering that's going to make my work better? At the manager level, it's my team. What are you going to be doing that's going to help make my team better? The middle manager level, they're my favorite. I love them. We forget about them a lot. I see them as the glue that connects strategy and execution because they influence up, they influence down, they influence across. So speaking to those different business areas, how does this impact the business that I'm influencing of my team? How does this impact my direct reports? How does this impact me, looking good and driving the business forward in the function? And then the C-suite, my business is the business. So that group cares about the enterprise goals. That's where it's relevant. So it's speaking to each group's business in the language that makes sense to them. And to go to Sarah's point from earlier, business gets done through people. So it's the adoption. Business relevance is how we're creating the adoption at each level.
I love that. Sarah, what do you think then? Same thing. I mean, you sell at all levels. Now we're talking to HR at all levels. Like, what do you think?
Well, I love Jordana's recap. I thought that was brilliant. And when we talk, when I train a sales team, we talk about selling to our client's business model and communicating in terms that help them make money or save money. And so if you're an HR professional and you're talking to C-suite, you're talking to mid-level management, you're talking to individual contributors, that conversation is going to change. The brand of communication is going to change. What they care about is going to change. So they are essentially your clients along with the organization, and the way that you approach these different relationships are going to change. So it does look very different. And the more you can talk about that strategic alignment with the company's organizations, as Amy pointed out earlier, that's what's really going to keep the seat at the table, because they realize you understand their challenges, you're speaking to their pain point, and you're there to add value and solve problems.
It makes total sense. And I think this is where business acumen can backfire if we talk past our audience or we talk about something that we're very comfortable with, but they're not. So for example, like CHRO understands strategy at the highest level, what we're trying to accomplish. But when meeting with a group of first line managers, like they're like, that's great that you all talk about this stuff and think about what happens 5 years from now. But let me tell you what I'm dealing with. This customer is mad at us. And you're like, whoa, hold on a second. My business acumen didn't quite translate because I didn't come down in the elevator, right? We gotta make sure we understand. I love this. It's always the art of persuasion and influence is understanding the worldview, the day-to-day reality of who you're sitting across the table from in that moment, not just at your level, but kind of like at their level, always shifting that lens around. I like that a lot. But I think at this point, we've been talking a lot about what happens inside of our organization, our four walls, whether they be physical, virtual, metaphysical, whatever you're doing at your company. What about when we look across the external world? Like we have competitors, we have comparators, we have an entire ecosystem. When I talk about business acumen, is that only something that's about our business? Is it about instead kind of what's happening in the industry, like in healthcare, financial services, et cetera? Is it somewhere in between? Like, what do we think about that? And Amy, maybe I'll ask you to get started with your perspective on that one.
I remember when I was in healthcare and I would go to healthcare events desperately trying to learn about the industry. I was very focused on the company and the people at our organization, but was trying to pick up industry information as well. I do think both are important. And I think today with AI, there is a shortcut to learning about your industry to have a conversation with Gemini or Chat GPT to say, hey, I'm an HR professional in this industry. I'm brand new. What are the key things I need to know about? What are the trends? What are some red flags I need to be aware of? Who are our competitors? And I can think of so many hours I spent at events that I probably could have, we had AI back then, I could have saved some time and working through all of those resources. But yeah, I think it's important to be connected, build those relationships and that network, because the other thing too is you can run into HR professionals who are within that industry as well, and that becomes a highly valuable network.
Let's see what Amy did there. She gave you a time-saving shortcut, how to use AI to kind of tee it up, because I know time is precious for everybody on all around. Jordana, what do you think? I have a feeling that you're going to kind of agree as well, but I'd love to hear your take on inside, outside. How much emphasis do we put on one or the other or both?
Yeah, Amy nailed it. I mean, I call it a both and. And I think we need to understand the broader trends, but we need to show that we can connect the dots between what's happening in our organization and the day-to-day reality to get there. And part of that, and I'm going to throw in a cheat code alongside Amy here. It's not about you having all the answers. It's about being curious and asking the questions. So I think you can actually both enhance your understanding and show a strategic mindset if instead of going to this industry and going, I learned this and this is what happens, and somebody goes, well, that's not entirely clear. That's not how it works here. To go, I just learned this. Help me understand how this connects to our team over here. Is this something that you're facing? Is this something that's different? And it's that connection that I think HR is uniquely positioned to be, the only role that really spans that entire enterprise and thinking about all the people, but you also need to bring that back down and bring it bottom up too.
I love that. And I think it's so true. The most powerful consultants know the right questions to ask. And a lot of times it may look like they're trying to gather information. And at first, the business might be like, oh, I'm telling you stuff. And then all of a sudden they come to their own conclusion, like, oh my gosh, now I see I see where you're leading us. And I think the same is true at HR's got the perfect, seat at the table to do that. Sarah, you come up to speed in your sales professional role. You have to learn about entire markets and client situations. Like when you think about this inside, outside, is it my company? Is it the industry? Like what's your observation on something like that?
We only focus on our own organizations, then I think we become very siloed, and the outcome is an unintentional selfishness. And I think we lose focus on the North Star that we're all rowing the boat towards is the client. And I think about one industry that does this really well is the hospitality industry. So, you think about a hotel. Everyone in that hotel, from the security guard to the housekeeper to the engineer to the front desk person, they're all responsible for generating revenue. Because if you stay at a hotel and you have a really bad housekeeping experience, you're never staying there again. You're going to go tell all your friends, don't stay there. So that housekeeper is responsible for revenue. The way that like through line between all of this is everyone's trained and hyper focused on delivering a quality guest experience. And so the HR person can help deliver that vision to the housekeeper, like why we do things this way, why we're investing in this training. Because then if they take care of the people take care of the guests, and that drives the organizational revenue. So I love using hospitality as an example because they all have the guest in mind. That's the end goal. And so focusing on the end goal, it takes it out of yourself. So you're not so focused on your business, your lens, your focus, your company, and put it onto the people who make your company money and keep you employed.
It's so true. And I love that example of that kind of that North Star of the guest experience is what's really driving hospitality. No matter what we do, it always comes back to that. Otherwise, we won't have guests to be hospitable toward. But I think also something else you said that's super powerful in that too. I think in my experience, and I've certainly experienced it myself, where my lack of self-confidence, it wasn't selfishness, but it kind of ended up having almost a similar effect, as opposed to saying, I'm not going to be as self-conscious about, asking a question about, well, wait a second, let me understand this better. Why is it a big deal that this competitor just announced that? Like, why is that so concerning to us? I'm not picking that up yet. If I lack the self-confidence and I don't say, I don't want to sound like I don't know. Well, wait a second. That's going to kind of have a similar siloing effect as opposed to opening it up. And then one executive explains it. Don't be surprised if another one says, well, that's not it at all, because they don't necessarily agree. We assume they did, but all of a sudden you're surfacing something, and eventually it's going to come back to HR's world anyway, because every business is a people business and every business problem is a people problem. So we need our people professionals in HR to help lead the way, right? But I want to go back to something else, and this is going to be a little bit interpersonal in a sense. We saw that many respondents felt blocked by leadership. Sometimes, whether it's nefarious, whether it's unintentional but happening, whether it's just something that's just systemic, what do we do when we're blocked by leadership? They won't give us the access, the information, the time that we need. Jordana, when you hear this, my heart broke a little bit when I saw those Menti results, because you try to take people with you, and in that case, it's not happening. So what comes to mind for you what advice you have for our audience if they're feeling blocked by the business?
Okay, so the first one is going to be a hard truth, but I need to share it. We need to change our mindset. And I get it. Like everybody, you are all working so hard. I've been there with you. It's really frustrating that when you don't get invited to a seat at the table, or what you create, isn't leveraged. But instead, when you see somebody as a blocker, they become an adversary. And I want you to start treating everybody as an ally. And when you treat people as an ally, it changes your perspective. It changes the questions you ask. And rather than waiting to be invited, it means that you go to individuals rather than asking them to help you, to find out how you can help them. And most people are really receptive to that. Hey, I'd love to have a conversation to learn more about how I can be a better partner to you. I'd love to have a conversation to understand what's really important to you that I don't know right now. And then the more you engage in that, the more you're going to learn. And I guarantee you start getting invited to the table.
I like that a lot. Amy, let's build on that. When you hear these responses that some people are feeling blocked by leadership for whatever the reason, what comes to mind for you?
I think it's a skill set that hasn't been huge in HR, but we haven't really talked about it, but it's becoming more important, and it's the idea of creativity. So on top of what Jordana said, I totally agree on the mindset piece, but being more creative. My lock screen on my phone right now says, there's always another way. That's my reminder that, like, if I come up against a blocker, okay, accept it, figure out why, still try to move forward. If I really believe that something's important, if I really believe an initiative is important, worth investing in, how can I be more creative and find a new solution for that? And I think probably in sales, Sarah probably has a ton of examples, because I know with sales, we talk all the time about, like, okay, we have the customer wasn't excited about this. What are we going to do? What are we going to say next? And similar with HR, we need to be creative. It's like that Picasso quote, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. I really like that application for HR.
I dig that too. Sarah, what do you think? So we're getting blocked, something that you know pretty well.
Oh yeah, customers block you all day. I call it like giving you the Heisman. That's my one sports thing I think I know. Sort of. One of the things that I think is really valuable for a reframe on the mindset piece that Jordana shared is, I call it, my framework is ABAV, always be adding value. So you're always filling the other person's emotional bank account deposit. So think about creative ways to add value to that person. You're not asking them for anything. You're not saying, hey, can I just sit through a meeting and ring the alarm bells like, oh, am I in trouble? No, you're just consistently adding value. And part of the adding value is letting people feel like they're helping you. I would have loved if an HR person came to me in my past careers and said, hey, like, what are you challenged with? What is the core focus of your role? I would have loved to share, because that would benefit my clients too. So ABAV, always adding value. Think of creative ways. Maybe this webinar, great example. Like, hey, VP of sales, hey, senior leader, I'm attending this HR webinar. It's around the business of HR. I'd love for you to join. You might be interested in it. They might never respond to you, but doesn't matter because you're getting that emotional bank account deposit. So fill up the bank as much as you can because it becomes a lot easier to take withdrawals, and that's how you build relationships. And all this is just influencing, and so you have to really demonstrate your value, and a lot of that is just continually adding value.
I think that the other thing we know about executives is they love to talk about their part of the business. And so I feel like, so many of us are narcissists. We just like give us easy questions and let us glow about how great the business is running in our part of the world. We'll take that meeting all day. If you're going to make us feel like we're doing something wrong, we're going to be less interested in taking that meeting. But if you say, just like you said, Sarah, like this would really help me out, I'm like, oh, I like to help people out. I just want to hear about, how you've built the business success over the last 3 years that you've been here. Oh, I'd love to tell you about that. And all of a sudden, you'll eventually have that opportunity to ask the questions that might not be so obvious. I like that a lot. But I want to move us also to some of the more tactical, practical things to do. Let's talk about, between now and the end of the year, we got, I don't even know how many weeks that is, about 10, 11 weeks left in the year. Let's just use that as kind of a time box time frame. And Amy, what do you think are some things that if somebody's listening in on the call and they say, you know what, I'm in one of those buckets in the Menti poll where I could kind of improve my acumen, I'd like to do that. What's a specific actionable thing that you might recommend for them within that kind of time period?
It actually plays right off of what Sarah said. I've always heard sales talk about ABC, always be closing, but I like the always be adding value a lot. I would really recommend proactively getting on the calendar of some of your key partners, finance, IT, operations, and get on their calendar to talk about strategy for next year. Don't come with a blank piece of paper either. Come with ideas. Say, hey, here's where I think we need to head from a people perspective. Here are questions I have. Here are potential knowledge gaps I have. Where can I really lean in and look to drive that partnership? Be the person to set that meeting, be the person to initiate, and then continue to drive until you are aligned for where you're headed next year. I think too many HR pros, we just sit back and wait for someone to come knocking on our door, or we get too busy. And then all of a sudden it's January and we haven't had those conversations. So just putting those on the calendar now and being really pointed to have those conversations with key stakeholders at your company.
Love that. Book it. Book it.
Yep.
Sarah, what do you think? We need a practical tip, 10 weeks or
I'm
less.
going to give my cheat code, and there is this book, 101 Things I Learned in Business School, and there's a couple different categories that they go to market on, but I sold to architects, and obviously I'm not an architect. I didn't go to architecture school. They have a version of this on what you learned in architecture school. So this is a great resource, but podcasts, blogs, webinars like this, like there's AI, there's limitless opportunity to learn, and I know time's a challenge for everyone. So maybe it's just an hour a week and you time block it and it's just business acumen development, whatever you want to call it.
I dig that. Get that on the books too. Jordana, what do you think? Practical tip, 10 weeks or less?
Yep. Pick a business team in your business that you don't know a lot about. And I would recommend setting up time to say, hey, I'd like to understand more about the work you do. Help me help you. Help me understand. Spend some time with them. And then I'm going to throw in instead of solving for them, solve with them. Say, hey, what's the most important thing that I could be focusing on from an HR leader that's going to make your experience better, that's going to make your day-to-day better? Let's talk about what ideas you have. Let's talk about some of the barriers that are in that. Talking about that time barrier, you don't have to do it all yourself. And in fact, you're much more likely to get that adoption when people are surfacing the ideas to you in conversation and they feel a sense of ownership.
And Jordana, I want to keep you in the spotlight for a second.
Yeah.
When you think about this, I'm a huge advocate of our belief systems, our mindset, and this is going to take a little bit of asking us to do some things that we might not be entirely comfortable with. When you think about mindset shift, like what's something that we need to be prepared to modify?
So I think one of the things that we need to prepare to modify is how we think about ourselves. One of the things that I like to think about in HR is, no, we're not creating revenue, we're not creating products, but we are a product owner. Everything that we do is a product, and our clients are the people that were internal. And as part of that, I think the thing that you need to remember is 100% of the things that you focus on are about 2% of the mental bandwidth of the people that you serve. And you're competing for that mental bandwidth with yourself. You've got open enrollment and leadership training over here at the same time, and you're doing those things at the same time. And you're competing with all the other things going on: security training, finance, customer needs. So how do you get to I'm going to steal Sarah's ABAV also. But remembering that they're not ignoring you because they don't like you or they don't want to do it. It's because they have limited bandwidth and we're treating their brains like a hoarder's house. So let's get focused on what's meaningful to them.
I dig that. And Sarah, I want to get your take on this too. Sales mindset's one of the toughest ones to adopt. You've done so much work in this area. What are you thinking?
Well, and I love Jordana, the way that she framed it, of thinking about it like a product. Like, you are a sales channel for your organization. HR is arguably one of the most important because it brings in the people that are going to go do the work. And so if you think about HR as a sales organization and a function of sales, you're recruiting, you're representing your brand, talent development, making sure that the team's taken care of and stays at the organization. I would make sure that you, in that mindset shift, integrate that value add when you're talking to senior leaders, because you are responsible for the most important part of the business. They need the people to make the thing run. So I just think, make sure that you're valuing what you have, you're speaking to what matters to them, to the right stakeholder at the right time, and just really owning the fact that you are responsible for the most important part that makes the whole machine run. Be confident in how you show up and add those conversations.
Nice. And Amy, I want to give you the last word on this before we switch over to our audience Q&A. And it's really a simple but powerful question. As you know, when you and I first connected, I wanted to build this entire episode based on your background. You blew me away. But what is it about this topic of business acumen that is so important for us to be talking about, especially right now?
I think because it used to be that this was a nice to have in HR. And if you were an HR professional who also had business acumen, you were a unicorn, and that was amazing. And you could go lots of places. Now I think it's a must have, especially in the age of AI. What we're being asked to do, or maybe just being expected to do, not being asked, but people are just kind of looking to our teams, hoping, thinking we might be doing things focused on AI. Business acumen is built right into that. And so understanding that if you haven't gotten this place with your business acumen, you can fast track it with technology that we have now. And it's something that every organization is going to be looking for out of their HR team.
Love that. Awesome, awesome panelists. Thank you so much for guiding us through that conversation. It's an important one. I love how we started with the audience mentee information and polls and data, and then you just gave us so many great practical tips. We are getting ready for the audience Q&A part of the show. So remember to use that Q&A button inside of Zoom if you've got a question that you'd like me to pose to our panelists. And at the same time, we're throwing a link into the chat, and that's recognizing that companies are using talent optimization to drive better business results through better people practices. So if you're interested in learning about the Predictive Index, sponsors of the show, their talent optimization software platform, whatever it might be, or if you already have some familiarity with PI, you can let us know that too. That link is right there in the chat. So let's go to our Q&A. Audience is my favorite part. I have no idea what's about to happen. All right, here it comes. Mary wants to know this. Can you say more about stopping for 30 days to see if it really matters? Do we have some examples? Amy, this reminds me, I think you had said it's okay to stop doing some things. You want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, it actually, so the example that I gave today, it came down to something that when I was asking the team, how are we doing it? Why are we doing it? Everyone kept saying, so that we have it for audits. So I said, okay, what audits do we need this for? And came back, we don't need it for any specific audits. We had actually created this own concept. I don't know if it was folklore or someone had just started this narrative and we all kind of bought into it. But what we did was we dug in to see, okay, what are we actually going to have to produce in audits versus what we're doing now? And we've really kind of over-engineered the wheel, and we're continuing to put in a lot of work on something that it turns out it does not get requested in the form that we're thinking for audits. So that was the specific example, and the team was creating a big project. It was going to take a lot of cross-functional coordination, a lot of asks from our other business units and leaders. So we are putting a pause on that and saying, okay, what do we actually need to do, and getting clarity.
I see that show up a lot in communication where we prepare these laborious reports, we send it out, but we may not know if people are consuming them. Sometimes the advice is just stop sending it and see if anyone asks, hey, what happened to that thing? I used to get that. I really relied on it. Oh, okay, we'll keep doing it. Sometimes you don't know, and there's no other way to find out other than pull the plug. Yeah, I
Right.
like that. How about this next question from Bernie? How can HR partner with the business in the adoption of AI throughout an organization? Jordana, I'm looking at you. What do you think?
Like, oh boy. Okay. So, I mean, this is the people piece because when we think about adopting AI, we think about the technology aspect. That's only the implementation. Adoption is actually whether or not people are using it. It's change behavior. And who knows about change behavior? The people who lead the people, AKA HR. So I think that's where it starts, is helping to ask questions to identify what is the adoption strategy alongside the implementation strategy. What are we actually trying to accomplish with AI here? What is the problem that we're trying to solve for? And what are the gaps that people have? If you are helping to design a change management strategy or a training strategy, I think sometimes the mistake is that we focus on the smile sheet. Did people like it? Did they learn something? Did they rate it high? But that's not actually what moves the needle. It's what they're doing as a result of it. So you have to start in partnering with that team to understand it. And if you're asking these questions and they don't know the answer, guess what? You're already showing business relevance. You're already showing that you're a strategic partner. And you can say, well, let's talk through that and then come back to that. And then once we've got that, we can develop the strategy forward. I would also highly recommend, instead of enterprise rollout, starting with pilots, getting traction, seeing the results, being able to compare that to the larger population. And then again, best way to overcome time, leverage the resources you've got there, use those champions, use those pilots to go out and spread the message rather than you having to be the evangelist for it.
Love that. Lots of great actionable advice in there. You're going to have the recording. Remember, if you want to play that back, transcribe that, write that down. Additionally, Rachel, I don't know if maybe you can help me out, but I had written my LinkedIn newsletter this month all about this topic and gave some examples how Predictive Index does that as well. That'd be awesome to include that in the chat if you have a moment. But we're going to move on to the next question. Sarah, I'm going to look at you for this one. This is from Kay. She says, could the panelists provide some advice about how to talk to the executive team about being included in the strategy level conversations if they're not already? So you don't have that seat at the table, conversations are happening, you're an afterthought. Like how do we kind of elbow our way in there?
I believe it was Amy who recommended from a next quarter, this upcoming quarter, to get time on people's calendars to talk strategy. Once you do that, now you have something that's valuable. So it's, hey, I want to get some time on your calendar. I set up XYZ interviews. I'd love to share that feedback. You could use a Trojan horse to get the meeting. So I mean, it's not totally cool to say, but like you use a Trojan horse just to get the meeting. And then when you're at that meeting, you have an objective of what is the goal of the outcome from that meeting. And if your outcome, to Kay's question, is to make sure you have a seat at the table more, use Jordana's earlier point on just asking that question. Hey, the purpose of this meeting is to share some specifics on how we're partnering here, here, and here. I thought it'd be of value. How can I continue to be of value to you? And then you almost let them come up with the fact that, oh, maybe we need HR to be at this table with us. So you use these different value adds to get the meeting, demonstrate your value, demonstrate the way that you think and the way you add value. And then it becomes a lot more organic to either ask because you filled that bank account, or they might organically invite you.
Love that. Any others as well from your Amy, Jordana? I know you've kind of experienced this yourselves in different ways or heard about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say you don't have to ask permission to send an email to share the impact that your team is having. So nothing's stopping you from starting to champion what you are doing, what you're thinking about, and then taking it and turning it into, hey, can I get some feedback from leadership? This is where we're thinking about heading in Q1 and Q2 of 2026. Would love to get your feedback. Everybody loves to give feedback. They're never going to say no. They want to give an opinion, and because we work with people, you're going to probably have some pretty strong opinions come through. So that's another great way to use Sarah's method of kind of getting yourself there without maybe being physically at the meeting, not physically at the conference, in the conference room or at the board meeting, but showing that you're adding value. I really like a weekly recap to say, hey, here's what we accomplished. Here's what we helped drive. Here are the metrics. Obviously, you need to have all that in place to be able to send something that way, but not missing those opportunities to show the value that you're adding.
Love that.
I think just hearing you two talk so eloquently, I'm going to summarize it to the two key points that I think you shared, and that's be proactive and add value. And I think I'd add on to what Amy shared about adding value is also, hey, when we had that conversation last quarter and you said you were interested in X, Y, and Z, I just came across this resource that might be of interest to you. I wanted to share it. Not anything I'm highlighting that I do, shows that I'm listening, shows that I'm connecting the dots, shows that I'm adding value, and then let them come back and ask for more.
And I think depending on the relationship you have with, let's say, the CEO, for example, sometimes you don't ask, you don't get. And I think they may not just be thinking about it. And you're well within your right to say, look, for me to be maximally effective in the job you're asking me to do, I need to be in the room. And we can talk about the role that I play. You can provide some coaching, whatever makes you most comfortable. But sometimes you just have to ask. And that kind of leads me into this next question that I absolutely love from an anonymous person. As an HR generalist with 4 years experience, but no continuing education or a PHR or SHRM certification, I sometimes feel imposter syndrome. What would your recommendation be? Look at this, Jordan. I see you clutching.
Yeah. So first off, every single one of us feels imposter syndrome, even those of us on this stage. So I just want you to know that you're not alone. That's a common thing. And two things that I'll say to you. One, you have perspectives, experience, exposure, ideas that nobody else has. And if you don't share them, nobody else is going to come up with them because of your unique talents, your unique strengths, all of it. And you're depriving other people of learning from that. Second, a little dose of imposter syndrome is healthy because it keeps us humble, and humility opens the door to asking good questions and curiosity. So lean on that imposter syndrome as a mechanism to learn rather than a mechanism to hide.
I have
Love that.
something to
Yeah,
add to
please
that.
there.
I thought that was so brilliant, Jordana. And one thing that really helps me with imposter syndrome is think about the person who makes the decision to bring you on. So, we'll use this webinar as an example. I experienced imposter syndrome because I'm not an HR professional. I'm starting to sell to them, so I'm learning their business model. But I think about Matt. Do I think Matt knows what he's doing with his webinar? Yeah, I do. I think so highly of him. I think he's such an interesting thought leader in the leadership space. So, like, if I have imposter syndrome, then it almost means that I don't trust Matt. So it's almost like take it one level outside of you. And it's like, that's not the case. I think he's brilliant. So by him asking me to be on it, that in turn helps like dissipate that imposter syndrome.
I'm so glad I did. I feel the same way every time I hit a stage to give a talk, doesn't matter the audience size. You feel that pang, and then you're like, wait a second, if I'm feeling imposter syndrome, then I'm focused on my interests and my needs. How do I just put more of that energy into, sort of the benefit I can bring to the organization, to the conversation, whatever it might be. It's a good way to think about that too sometimes. So I want to ask Amy this one. How has being business-minded paid off for you in your own professional development? Do you have any specific examples about how being business-minded helped pay off?
Well, that last question took me back to when I was a generalist and I had just gotten into HR and I had no certification and I felt all kinds of imposter syndrome. And I went after education because for me, that's what I felt I needed. Those were my gaps. And I pursued my MBA, I pursued my PHR, all of those things. And that did open doors for me. But I would say what was different is the conversations that I was having with leaders. I was talking about the business. I was asking questions about the balance sheet, the P&L. I was very curious about these things. And the book that Sarah showed, I need to check that one out. I really got into the Dummy series, which is like embarrassing to order those books, but I think the first one I ordered was like Financial Accounting for Dummies because I wanted to understand. I was getting these finance was sending the profit and loss every month, and I was like, what am I looking at? So it really, I think it set me apart at the start and has led to the opportunities that I've had. And then I really wanted to get into consulting. And that was what it was all about, was connecting with the business leaders from the get-go and being able to understand the business problems they were trying to solve and how HR could help solve those business problems, not solving HR problems. So I really think it's been a huge differentiator for me.
So cool. Thanks so much for sharing that. I could keep this panel going for another hour, but Rachel won't let me. Let's go ahead and pull the slides back up. And I've got some takeaways. They're going to get the contact information for our panelists here. You'll see that in the chat with the LinkedIn. Some of these takeaways that they've prepared for you, though, we're going to have in your follow-up materials, so look for those. Sarah has a free resource for you to help you strengthen your sales enablement strategy. So you can, it's called Ignite Your Sales in 2026, 5 fundamentals every enablement program needs. So you'll find core elements that top performing teams need to drive consistent revenue and build stronger sales cultures. Jordana is encouraging you to take the free ShiftWell Employee Insight to Impact audit. You can assess where your organization's strong and where your strategy may be falling short, and you walk away with a calibration sort of output as well as recommendations for improving your employee insight and your actioning approach. Amy has encouraged us to check out Bloomerang, as well as her resources on growing your HR career over there on Gumroad. I love that you pull that together, Amy. It's so amazing. And for myself, I'd like to promote the fact that we have this Become Your CEO's Most Valuable Partner, the MVP. It's really had a tremendous reception about how to partner between your HR leaders and your CEO to really become their most valuable partner and unlock the power of that alignment between HR and executives. Amazing. So let's go ahead and advance to one more slide here. That's our fabulous book giveaway. Thanks so much to Bianca Cobb. Bianca, congratulations. I'll be sending you a signed copy of the book. If you're interested in that, thanks for attending as you always do. And we'll go to one more slide here, which is a special announcement. So I think it's next week. When is this? It's going to be on October 15th. Yep, there it is. From 5 to 8 p.m. in Boston. If you're a Boston-based person like myself, you can. We have a couple of limited spots for you to the free Chief People Officer meetup in Boston that's hosted by Living HR. So if you're a Boston area person, you can come and hang out with myself, with our Chief People Officer, Jackie Doobie, friend of the show. And you can come check us out in Back Bay. We'd love to have you host. So Rachel's going to drop a link in the chat if you're Boston-based and you'd like to register. And you'll also see that in your follow-up email as well. Very last slide is to talk about our tip sheet here, which is we prepared for you. You'll see this in the follow-up materials. 10 ways HR pros can build business acumen in 30 days or less. So we'll build on those excellent tips that you received today. You can download that. Hope you enjoy it. And then finally, when it comes to next month, we're going to be talking about the role of HR in AI adoption. I know that was a question that came up today. We're going to have a whole webinar on it. This will be November 12th, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Really appreciate you joining as always and really hope to see you there. Panelists, loved having you so much. Sarah, Jordana, Amy, it's been absolutely fabulous getting your perspectives. It's even better than I could have possibly expected and hoped for. I love having you with us today. Thank you so much.
You.
And thank you as well to our audience, as always, for your time, attention. You always show out for us. Really love it. And thanks to our sponsor, the Predictive Index, for making talent optimization dreams come true all over the world every day. I'll let everybody get off to your next meeting, but thank you again for attending and really hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.